Want a high-end white tablecloth steak eating experience right at home? Join us at Bid on Beef. Connect with hardworking American Angus and Wagyu ranching families to source your beef from a trusted and reputable source. In a fast-paced and fun auction process, you're in the driver's seat with Bid on Beef. You choose the cuts, you choose the price, and you choose the ranch. Buy with confidence knowing beef will soon be shipped to your door. So savor the win and the thrill of victory knowing sizzling steaks are in your future. Learn more at bidonbeef.com.
Hey, today I got Dr. John Shank and Fred Smith, the facility manager out at MBS with me on the Bullpen podcast. And I'm horrible in introductions. So, John, why don't you go first? Just give us a little bit of your background and history.
Well, thanks, Les. I've been in the bull business for over 40 years. I grew up at a farm and ranch out at Akron, Colorado, and got my master's at Colorado State University under the guidance of Dr. Rupert Amon. He was probably one of the world's most advanced experts in the field of andrology. My thesis focused on numbers of sperm needed to maintain maximum fertility in females, as well as different extenders to cryopreserved sperm. And so, as I said, I've been in the business for quite a few years. I've got to bounce around at different organizations, even got to participate with Nebraska Bull Service once upon a time in my career, not too long ago. One of the highlights was I got to be part of a team that developed the sperm sorting technology back in the late 90s to early 2000s. And so that kind of sums up who I am and where I've come from.
Awesome. Fred, how about give us a little bit about your background?
Thanks, Les. John, good to be with you this morning. John and I go back a few years. We had a really great opportunity to work together, and we're still working together, so it's great. My background is in commercial beef production and the registered purebred side of it. Through the years, mainly through the AI business, AI in commercial and purebred herds, in semen sales also. I've been here at Nebraska Bull Service. I've had the opportunity to work with a few of the other owners, and we're very blessed to have Voglers come in and be able to work with them. Right now, our focus is on production. Our facility right here, we can handle 180 bulls, one-time capacity. CSS accredited facility, custom collect. We've got pre-entry, isolation, and CSS bulls.
Awesome. So, John, John and Fred, both of you, the way that I survive, my family survives, is we surround ourselves with people that are way smarter than us and way better than us. So I really want to thank both of you as we get started here. But John, you said, you've been in the AI industry. You're kind of, how actually, if you recall, did artificial insemination how has that evolved over the last few years?
Over the last few years, or the last, say, 50, 60 years, less.
There you go. This is the last, I've been in business for 41 years, and we're about the same. So let's go 50 or 60 years.
Yeah. So, one of the advantages, or not just one, but the advantages of AI is to exploit the genetic reproductive capability of superior sires, and then to offer those genetics worldwide. And in the process of doing so, we were able to control the spread of reproductive diseases through the use of artificial insemination. And so those three factors have really been key in driving AI forward in both the dairy and beef industry over the years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you also mentioned what different organizations have you worked with as far as like the AI, the bull stud industry? Can we go into that? Or
we can do that. So let me just start. I got my start. I did an intern as an undergraduate at Texas A&M under the direction of Dr. Ron Randall, whose primary focus was on the female side of things. But he had 24 Brahman bulls that needed a project. And so we treated 12 of those bulls with lasallicid, a Munensin type ionophore, which promotes growth. And the concept was to see if we could hasten puberty in those bulls that were treated with this ionophore. When that study finished, I came back to CSU, and as I said, I got into a master's program here at Colorado State. And I too surrounded myself with people way smarter than I will ever be. And towards the end of that educational experience, at that time, Colorado State had a custom bull collection facility called the Bull Farm. And I think you actually got some training there.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I think so. So at the time, Dr. Merlin Jabauer was the manager as I was a graduate student, and he moved on, and I was offered that position as manager of the Bull Farm. And so I held that for about a year, and the university had other things going on as well. They had a custom horse collection facility, the Stallion Lab, and they had an embryo transfer facility. Well, the university's position was, once a technology becomes commercially available, they should no longer compete with private industry. And so they got out of the custom bull business. And as it happened, there's another bull stud east of Denver out by the airport these days.
Yes.
It's known as Rocky Mountain Sire Services.
Correct.
But before that, it was owned by Occidental Petroleum, and it operated under the name of Ankeny Shadow Isle.
Okay.
And they actually also had about a 3,000 head Angus herd up at Minnetonka, Nebraska. And so between the two facilities, there was about, 3,000 cows. At the time, that arguably may have been one of the best maternal-based Angus herds in the country. And with 3,000 cows, of course, there would have been 1,500 bull calves, and I got to do semen evaluations on those 1,500 bulls then that went into natural service. So that gave me a great deal of experience seeing the numbers of bulls and sperm abnormalities, as well as run the custom collection facility there at Bennett, Colorado. From there, I went to American Breeder Service had a facility north of Fort Collins here at Wellington, Colorado. And there was about 300 mostly Holstein bulls there. We housed the dirty bulls for American Breeder Service. The dirty bulls being the leukosis positive, the blue tongue positive, those bulls that had a very limited export market. The remainder of the bulls that ABS had were housed in DeForest, Wisconsin.
Okay.
As you may or may not know, American Breeder Service then was divested to a group of private equity people. The name was changed to ABS Global, and then eventually it was acquired by Genus, as it operates today. As that first, I actually got to work with ABS twice. As that first round came to an end, I got to go up and set up a collection facility at St. Jacobs, Ontario, just southwest of Toronto. And we then housed many export bulls for ABS Global out of that facility to satisfy an export market. But then good old Dr. George Seidel here at Colorado State University gave me a phone call and asked me if I'd be interested in pursuing and developing the technology to sort sperm into males and females. And so that then led me on about an 11-year experience. It was awesome. A giant playground. There was no rules.
Right.
I could write a book, 1,001 Ways to Kill Sperm, and have an appendix, a very small appendix on how to keep them alive. And so I learned a great deal, not only through experience, but also from Dr. Seidel. XY was eventually divested or sold to Sexing Technologies in Navasota, Texas, who now controls and maintains that technology and offers the technology to the genetic centers. Today, don't let me forget here, I got to serve as Vice President of Operations / Production for accelerated genetics. And in that process, that's where I got to meet Fred, a subsidiary of accelerated genetics was the custom bull stud known as Nebraska Bull Service, which you now own, Les. And between the dairy and the beef side of things, we were producing about 4 million units of dairy semen and another 500,000 units of beef semen. Mostly was being produced out there at Nebraska Bull Service.
Yeah. Wonderful. Just kind of a quick note. I won't get into a lot of this, but you mentioned the sex semen part and the way we actually got started. And I'm sure maybe you remember this, John, but in Murdoch, Nebraska, our original partner, Dutch Rickley, had a bull stud there. This would have been back in the early 70s. And I can't remember the doctor's name, Botchachariot, or I'll butcher his name, but he thought he could sort semen at the time. And they actually had a building would house 15 bulls, and they had a group of investors, 10 or 20 of them, and they were trying to sort semen. This was back in the 70s. And then when they couldn't when it wasn't working quite right, they had to shut the building down, and it had to remain empty for a certain number of years. And that's when Dutch came to us after that time period ended. And at that time, Nebraska Bull Service was in Wellfleet, Nebraska. And Nebraska Bull Service came up for sale. We offered to buy it, and then the gentleman at the time rescinded his offer. So Dutch said, well, why don't we just start one on our own? And we did, and it was actually in that facility there in Murdoch, Nebraska, where they first were trying to sort semen. Is why they built the facility. But anyway, we'll get into that another time. So right now, currently out at NBS, Fred, I mean, and you and John work together quite a bit. What are some of the things that we kind of rely on John for? He kind of consults us a little bit and helps us. Tell us a little bit about that out there at NBS.
Yeah, having a good relationship with John and working with John in the past, since Vogler family came in and bought NBS and was opened back up, I stayed in contact with John, and we have John come back in and do continuing education. We use John to answer some questions from time to time that we have, different bulls that arise, trouble bulls, problem bulls. John is a wealth of knowledge. He's been in an industry for so long. He's seen so many different scenarios that it's just a treat to be able to work with him to help us go over issues and problems and work through some of that stuff. Some of the things that we've changed working with John is just amazing, that the opportunity that we've had using his experience, changed different things, not only in the laboratory, but outside in the collection pens, working with those bulls from start to finish. Being able to do everything from the time those bulls come in, they're unloaded, to the time that we go to the collection pen, to the housing issues, collection, and then when the ejaculants get into the preliminary laboratory for extensions and looking at motility and morphological evaluations, and then the filling and freezing. There's just so many different things that John has really helped us out with from start to finish. Handling is a big thing. Handling is one of my big pet peeves, working in the field a lot. And that is one thing that John has really helped our lab with, the handling of that. There's a lot of things that we can help and we can do, but there's a lot of things that we can't. We can make the product, have the product, but once the product leaves, it's in our customers' hands after that.
Yeah. Now, when you say handling, Fred, what do you mean by, to somebody that's listening and maybe doesn't quite understand? When you say handling, what do you refer to?
I look at handling as being a combination of us here handling the frozen semen in the laboratory when during the production side of it, racking, caning, taking that semen, using for a post-thaw evaluation, and then putting in the tank the shipping side of it, handling for the shipping side of it, And then a major part of it is when that semen is shipped out to the farms, out to the ranches, to the ET centers that are using it, just talking with them and having proper handling and usage when it gets to them.
Right, exactly. And John, maybe you can expand on this a little bit, like when Fred was talking about handling. So we send this semen off to the certain customers, and they're using it. And obviously, we're trying to put out the best product possible, but we can't control what they do at their ranch or when they're breeding. But do you have any statistics, or do you know every time they lift that cane in and out of that semen tank, and they're exposing it? What are we doing to that semen sometimes, John?
Well, Les, you risk the opportunity to warm that frozen product. So there's a general rule: don't lift that product higher than the neck for longer than 10 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And statistical, I'd have to dig in my resources
Right.
to give you numbers, but that's the general guideline: is keep it below the frost line and don't lift it out longer than 10 seconds.
So 10 seconds and below the frost. I heard somewhere like if you hold it up too far, you may lose 10% motility.
Yeah, so anytime you warm and refreeze the product, you're going to cause more cellular damage to those sperm that are contained within that straw. So you want to minimize that risk.
Yep. So John, I know back years ago, when you and I first started doing this, you talked about sperm numbers, and I know when we first started freezing, the half cc straws, we were probably dosing those straws with 50 to 60 million sperm cells.
Yes, we were. It wasn't. There's nothing new there, is there, Les?
No, there isn't.
There's no new technologies, as some claim today.
No. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
we were putting sperm up at 60 to 70 million sperm per dose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is for conception? What's the optimum number of sperm cells?
Well, so that's a loaded question. So in a male population, we're going to talk about bulls. So 20% of the bull population is of high fertility. 20% of the bull population is of low fertility. And the rest of those bulls, that 60%, falls somewhere in the middle. Now, back in 1998, there was some iconic data that came out. It was published in the Journal of Dairy Science. Dr. Nancy den Daas out of the Netherlands, she conducted this study, and she identified those different bull groups. And she came up with, for 40% of the bull population, less than 4 million total sperm would reach 95% of maximum threshold fertility. Another 40% of the bulls will operate somewhere between 5 to 8 million total sperm. And then, of course, we have the low fertility bulls, and who knows how many sperm. Well, they're never going to reach the fertility level of the high and the medium fertility bulls. And so that's the best data that we have out there that came from the Dutch and was published in 1998.
So 1998, and we're now in 2025. So kind of what I tell people is, sperm cells are sperm cells. They don't evolve much. It's just kind of the way we handle things and produce and extend things.
Yeah.
So that's, and now, everybody says industry standards or whatever, but quite honestly, what we do at NBS right now, and Fred, maybe you can do this for our custom collectibles. What are we shooting for when we're freezing semen?
We only have one benchmark, and that one benchmark is for custom collectibles, CSS bulls, big company bulls. We have the opportunity to work with a couple of larger bull studs, and where we're at on those, we use 70% normal on the custom collectibles and the CSS bulls, the stud bulls. That 70% normal is on morphological evaluation. Our motility levels, we want to be at 50% motile on those raw ejaculates coming into the lab preliminary. Post-thaw evaluation, we'd like those post-thaw evaluations to be at least 30% to 35%. Most generally, those post-thaw evaluations are going to be in 40 to 45%.
Right.
when we're looking at the morphological evaluation of those ejaculants, those collections pre-freezing, if we can have good collections, our success rate right now on a pre-freeze and a post-thaw evaluation with a morph, we're at 98.5% success rate on those. So if we have good semen going out, it's pretty much a guarantee that we're going to have good semen coming out.
Right, exactly. But I think, and what we're shooting at NBS and here at Ashland and Vogler's too, when we're dosing the cells, those straws, we're probably looking somewhere between, we try to get as close to 35 million total sperm cells per straw is what we're shooting at.
Yeah, Les, many studs do that.
Yep.
Those bulls that are in very high demand, they'll be titered much less. But
right,
yeah,
exactly.
there are more than enough sperm per most straws to get maximum fertility in most herds.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Some of those high demand bulls, and when we collect for some other facilities, some larger ones, and I won't go into any names, and they do numerous tests on these bulls, so they know they'll take like maybe 1,000 straws and put it in the dairy herds, and they'll know the fertility of some of these bulls. And those bulls that are high fertility, they'll give us the go ahead. Okay, package this bull at a certain rate, or package this bull at a certain rate, and like you said, basically, I can't remember the exact numbers, but I'm just going to say if we get close to 10 million good sperm cells or total sperm cells, that pretty much can get to optimum conception on a lot of females.
You're absolutely right.
As long as, but then again, you got bull A and you got bull B, and it's kind of like Coke and Pepsi. You don't know which one they are. The semen may look the same, but one bull may be way more fertile than the other. Really, looking at motility and morphology is not the end all when it comes to fertility, if I'm right.
You're correct. And you also mentioned standards. So unfortunately, we as an industry overall, we do not have a consensus on what makes a good product.
Yep.
In my book, as Fred alluded to, it begins with a good morphological product or morphological evaluation, and then motility plays a role into making that product as well. But then when these straws go out to the customer, so if let's say your herd average is 60%, if you only send 10 straws out to that customer, he the 95% confidence interval on those 10 straws at a 60% average is going to be plus or minus 30%. So he could be looking at what he would consider an absolute train wreck, or the next guy would be considered, oh, how wonderful our product is.
Right.
Even if you go up to sending a customer 100 straws, you're still plus or minus 10% on that 60. So that average then could be a 50 or it could be a 70. In terms of conception rates.
Yep, it really, and luckily, unfortunately, over all the years we've done the business, and then with MBS, do we get a phone call once in a while? Yeah, once in a while, but not very often, because the quality is, but it's inevitable. Somebody's going to call you, and especially when they get into embryo transfer or something else. When it comes to embryo work, it's always the semen's fault. It's never.
Yeah. You took the word right out of my mouth. It's always the same, but it's very important to understand that the sperm or the product is only a small portion of what contributes to that pregnancy. We've got female management, heat detection, inseminator competence. It's called the equation of reproduction, and I think we've covered the 4 items that go into that.
Yeah.
And then you brought up embryo transfer, and sperm transport is simply screwed up in the superovulated female.
Yeah.
So we can't make any comparisons to superovulation and natural service or AI use.
Right. Exactly. So going back kind of like the very beginning, like some of the things, and you've seen the setup out there at MBS, obviously, John and Fred, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think you kind of helped design the way we do that. How important is it the way that our crew out there at MBS handles the bulls, and the way we get them, how do I say that, sexually ready for collection, if you know what I mean?
Well, Fred, I'll let you start that one.
Thanks, John. I want to back up just a little bit real quick. When John and Les, you were talking about the quality of the product and everything that can go wrong. One of the things that I always say talking to customers is that if 44 different things are going to go wrong in your breeding project, we cannot dictate the weather if it's 110 degrees in the shade or it's 20 below zero, if it's snow and raining. Like John said, the shape of the cows, the way that your cowboys are working the facilities. One thing that we can do is produce a good product. If we can produce a good product and that product can go out the door, that's what we've accomplished. We've taken one out of that 44. Going back to the sexual arousing the animals, the way that we're set up here in McCook, in our Big 10 facility, we've got 14 watch pens. 14 watch pens on 2 different collection pens. We'll use 10 steers over there. We'll have those bulls that come in, sexual arousing. We want to false mount 2 to 3 times to get those bulls sexually aroused to get a good collection. Volumes and concentrations are a direct reflection to the way that our crew is working those bulls. We'll try and lead them and move them. We want to do everything that we can to get those better collections for us and the customers.
Yeah.
John has been really helpful with that. We go back to the beginning, John working in the lab and outside to help us with that also. But I feel that the way that we're set up, working 2 pens side by side, using many bulls at one time to get bulls on one pen, arousing the other pen to get everything moving and keep moving.
Yeah, so it's very important. There's such a difference between sexual stimulation and sexual preparation. And so stimulation is simply getting a bull to jump. But sexually preparing him is getting the maximum number of sperm in that ejaculate that you can obtain for that given time. And so it's very important. And that's some of the things that Fred has alluded to there.
John, could you say that one more time?
So sexual stimulation and sexual preparation are different things.
2 different things.
So sexual
preparation. Okay.
Stimulation is what it takes just to get a bull to jump. Okay. But preparation increases the number of sperm that you're going to collect from that ejaculate. So you want your bulls to be properly sexually prepared before you serve them an artificial vagina. And those are some of the things that Fred and I work on with the crew outside in terms of collecting bulls.
Yeah, and the way we collect them at MBS is and we try to do it here at Vogler's too, is the most natural way possible, and that is with the use of artificial vaginas. And sure. there are different types of those. And John, I think you've kind of helped the folks out at MBS, and this is something after we purchased the facility that I learned and utilize it back in Ashland now, is the type of AV that you use, and the way that and I don't want to give any of our secrets away, but I really want to thank you because I think did you kind of help Fred design that, or?
Yeah, we use a shorter AV, and it increases the sperm recovery.
Yep. And someday we'll get that video, because we can do whatever we want to on here. Someday we'll run that video that you put together.
The ejaculation in the bull, that one.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Dr. Seidel as a PhD, as a PhD student at Cornell University. So that's probably older than you and I are, Les.
That probably is. We may have to. He probably has rights to. We may have to see.
Yeah, he may have. Yeah, that's an oldie.
John, when we're talking about the preparation and the stimulation, what are we looking at our totals weekly harvest on those bulls? Are we looking at 13, 12, 13, 14 Is that what we want to look at a gross on that?
Yeah, so Fred, it depends, so this again is some data that dates clear back into the 60s, early 70s. It hasn't changed. Bulls are still bulls. So for young bulls, a sperm harvest goal should be somewhere between 10 to 20 billion cells per week. And for mature bulls, you're looking at 40 to 60 billion sperm per week. Those are goals that one would want to have. And of course, as we've already talked about, there's going to be bull to bull differences. But one of the things that I always try to promote is to deplete the epididymal sperm reserve. So for each ejaculate that we harvest, we collect about half of the available sperm reserves in that epididymis. So you go 1, 2, 3 collections depending on that bull. I like to shoot for an ending concentration of 800 million per mil, and then the bull can go home, and that will deplete. Those numbers then will deplete the epididymal sperm reserves. And what that does then, the cauda, or the tail of the epididymis where the sperm are stored, acts as an inner tube. So it can expand and hold more sperm, or we can collect that bull quite often and we can shrink that epididymis and it will hold fewer sperm. The end result is we have a more youthful population of sperm then that are being stored in those depleted bulls. And then that is reflected in the sperm quality, not only in motility, but also in morphology in the laboratory. So it's very important to deplete those sperm reserves. ABS did a study, and this goes back to the mid-'80s, where they collected bulls on a 2 days per week, 3 ejaculates per day, or 3 days per week, 2 ejaculates per day, and they showed in terms of sperm harvest, there was no difference. So that gives you some kind of collection regime that you can establish to put bulls on. I'm not a big fan of collecting bulls once a week. I just think some of those, especially mature bulls, they simply produce far too many sperm to have a bull collected once a week and maintain the quality compared to bulls collected more often. My personal preference.
No, I totally agree. What about some of these young bulls that come in, John? What's your thought on those?
Yeah, so young bulls, they're still developing. So, they're going to reach their epididymis, the cauda, will reach its capacity about every 2 to 3 days. So if you really want to maximize the sperm harvest on young bulls, you would collect them every other day type thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Much to, because a lot of people say, well, yeah, he's yearling bull, just collect them once a week, but you might be benefiting yourself if you do them.
I'd do at least twice.
At least twice.
I would do at least twice.
And how many? Just until they get to. But you're you think once you get below 800 million is what you're saying, or
800 million per mil? Yeah, I think it's time to quit. But you have to study the previous ejaculates to make sure that they make sense. Are they in descending order? So if you start off, say 1.2 billion per mil, and then the next one is 900 million per mil, your third collection will probably come in around 600 to 500 million per mil, and it's time for him to go home.
And that's what Fred and I really like, because we have a new program now where because Fred and I, we both we used to collect all the time, but we have other people doing it for us now. So, but we can sit there. What they don't realize, we can sit there and monitor their collections when they come in. So if we say that first collection is maybe at 700 million, and the next one is at 1.2 billion. We can have a little chat with our collectors, and then they'll get things straightened out.
Right. Your bull wasn't properly sexually prepared on that first collection.
Yep, absolutely. And sometimes, that stuff happens sometimes. You get especially in the custom thing, when you get these new bulls coming in, some of them get, quite honestly, some of them will pre-ejaculate on you, and just until you get to know the bull. Once you get to know the bulls, and I feel our collectors out at NBS do an awesome job. And they're really, because I can look at their records, they're really doing a great job of learning the bulls and learning how to get them sexually prepared to give us the optimum collections.
Yep. Let's talk a little bit about how long it takes to make a sperm. So the sperm we're collecting today in early January were actually began to be made back in early November. So it takes about 61 days for a sperm to be ejaculated. And this becomes important when we have these young bulls especially this time of year, yearling bulls that are going through sales, some of these bulls are simply not sexually mature enough to ejaculate enough normal sperm for Nebraska Bull Service or Fred's crew to process. And you can't hasten that process. Some of those abnormalities that those bulls are ejaculating, those bulls simply need to go on a shelf and mature a couple of weeks, perhaps a couple of months even, and their morphological issues will subside, hopefully, most of them in time.
And we all know the bulls come from the sale. The bulls that are in heavier condition always sell better, but there are most likely the hardest ones to get good semen out of.
Yeah, they're challenging.
Yeah. And when it comes to that, what about testicle shape, John? What do we want to? Because you're going to be doing this. My brother's going out tomorrow. He's going up to. And it's going to be cold in North Platte where he's going, but they're going to be measuring testicles and testing bulls. And when some of these bulls come in, what is an ideal testicle shape if somebody's looking at one?
Well, a nice elongated type shape for those testicles. You want them to palpate. If you make a muscle and palpate your bicep here, you want it to be firm like that, have a little give to it. You don't want them to be soft and mushy.
Right.
And of course, we want bulls, yearling bulls this time of year to be 34, 35, 36 centimeters.
Right.
And one of the things that we have to be cognizant of as it pertains to Fred and the bulls that are coming in over the next few months, especially in this part of the world, is frostbite, scabbing on the bottom of that scrotum. That's going to be an inflammation of that testes, and that's going to adversely affect sperm maturation in the epididymis. And it'll take, perhaps as long as 3 months for that to clear, depending on the severity of the frostbite.
Yeah, Fred, you've noticed that in some of the bulls we've had come in last winter was horrible weather-wise, but we've had some come in like that.
You look at last year, a year ago, this time, we were minus 16, minus 17 degrees. And that's what we always want to do. We always want to remind our customers they're calving, they're busy, they're bedding those heifers down, they're bedding those calves down. Don't forget to bed your bulls down. Right. Get them out of the wind, get them a little wind break. Give them some bedding. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him to drink. But at least if you put some bedding out there, they have the opportunity to get out of the wind. They can bed down. They're not backed their rear end into the wind where the testicles are the first thing that the wind hits. So we always want to, we see that from time to time. Bulls come in and we'll have those scabs and we'll have issues. And just like John said, some bulls take a lot longer than others.
Yeah. And like John, you said, you're going to be doing some testing but quite honestly, most of that is done before the sale. And kind of what I tell people, okay, that test is really good for today.
It is.
I don't know what's going to happen to that bull next week, or if, and one thing, it can get really cold, or what I've seen is foot rot. Foot rot can really affect a bull in a hurry. You get those coming in. So that semen, it's good to have it, because what we look for, a lot of times you going through your test, you'd be surprised how many of, they fed these bulls all year and you get ready, well, there's only one testicle or something. So you weed out those and you weed out all the problems, and you try to do as good as you can as semen evaluate in most of the bulls, but that's really good for just a short period of time, quite honestly.
Yep, it's only as good as today.
Yeah. So they really need to once they bring their bulls in, they really need to get them tested again before they turn out to grass.
Yep. They need to do that too.
Yeah. So,
Les, you mentioned that the most important aspect of pain-free semen collection is good feet and legs.
Yes.
There is no supplement needed other than good sound feet and strong conformation.
Yeah, because when the bull's in pain, that does affect their collection and their morphology. Would you agree?
Yeah, he's not going to want to jump, so it's going to be difficult to get him sexually stimulated, and it's going to be impossible to get him sexually prepared.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Is there anything else either one you two would like to go over today while we're on this conversation?
John?
Well, I don't know. I have to ponder it a while here, Les. We've covered a lot of different avenues here.
Yeah, we have. We can. And we got. That's the beauty of this. We can come back and do this. I would love to get you and Fred on again, and go over some more stuff here in then, this upcoming season. So.
I think one of the things that we need to applaud you and your family for is you've maintained the quality control, the quality of the product coming out of Nebraska Bull Service. I think that's been very important. There are very few facilities in the custom world that have product quality as Nebraska Bull Service does.
Well, I really appreciate that, and Fred is. Like I say, the facility manager, and it makes when I put my when our family goes to sleep at night, we're really assured that we have Fred out there.
He's the best.
Hurting all the cats. Isn't that right, Fred?
John, I want to bring up a little thing. Les, a few weeks ago, we had a tour come through, and Les was out for the tour, and we talked about how Nebraska Bull Service has gone through different changes. We talked about how the Vogler family came in, and John is kind of up to speed with everything, the way that things have turned. But John, I have to tell you that when I talked the other day to a group of customers, I had to give thanks to Les and the Vogler family. A few years ago, we were closed down, and they went out on a limb. They bought the facility, opened it back up, and we went from zero production October 1 of 2017 to just a few years later to a little over 1 million units of production without the Vogler family affording us the opportunity to go back to work. That would have never happened.
What I see is the folks there have the equipment. They have everything they need to make an excellent product. If I could back up a bit, you asked me the changes we've seen in the industry. I think for me anyway, one of the biggest advantages we now have is these programmable freezers. Back when I started, it was vapor freezing.
Yes.
And I think these programmable freezers now they afford us the ability to control that freeze rate. And we simply see a far better sperm coming out of those freezers than we did in the old vapor freezes.
Yeah.
That technology has really advanced.
100% agree. 100%. So, okay. Hey, we're going to wrap up the bullpen today, but John, Fred, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. I know you're both extremely busy, and really appreciate it. And we'll get together again soon. So
you're very welcome.
Yep.
Okay.
You bet.
Thank you, Les.
Good to see you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
A Hurrdat Media Production.